Episode 26, Stop Being Lukewarm. In this episode, we'll be discussing surrendering everything to Christ, don't become a product of your environment, Saturday night versus Sunday morning, half commitment, and your plan versus his plan. Now, this is a topic that is, when you refer to lukewarm, obviously in this being the Unwavering Believer podcast, I'm referring to faith for the most part. This is also applicable to life and just any of your goals in general, which I'm going to get to in a second here. So stop being lukewarm. Don't take this and run with it, especially if you're not a man or woman of this faith, and think that it's not going to be applicable to you. I promise you it will be in some way throughout this episode. And of course, the end goal being you want to make this applicable to your faith, whether, again, you've pursued this faith or not. That is the whole premise of this episode. So without further ado, just jump right into it. Not sure how much time I have left on these lights here. Got some new lights. Pretty cool. So, starting with surrender everything to Christ. Whether it be past desires, hobbies, or passions, we must surrender everything at the foot of the cross. For those who have, you come to realize the healthy ambitions and dreams you had prior to still remain. Now, why is this? Well, because in giving yourself to Christ, people tend to think everything you've ever hoped for has to vanish. This couldn't be any further from the truth. The reality is, Christ intended for us to be ambitious, driven individuals with larger-than-life goals. Of course, goals that align with His will. So if your biggest dream was to be sleeping on a bed made of $100 bills with 20 women at your side at all times, maybe that won't come to fruition. However, the healthy goals you set out for will, if you stay the course, work hard, and put your trust in Him. Now, your next question may be, what do you define as healthy goals? Good question. I believe things like financial freedom, competing in anything at the highest level, or even obtaining a solid following can be healthy goals if achieved for the right reasons. If you've become a slave to money, idolize competing at a high level, or allow your fulfillment to lie within the amount of likes you get on any given post, then you are no longer pursuing these things for Christ, and that's where the problem begins. With that being said, lay down everything at the foot of the cross. The things meant to better you will come to fruition, and the hunger will remain. It takes time to acknowledge the change, but when you look back, you'll be forever grateful. Pretty straightforward, right? Surrender everything, leave everything at the foot of the cross, and the healthy goals, the things that will better you, glorify His name, and ultimately just lead you down a much better path in life. Those things are going to remain. They will not fade away. It's just a common misconception in the community, or that people like to make up so they don't have to pursue this faith. Number 2, don't become a product of your environment. Too often, people who claim to be followers of Christ are like chameleons, blending into their environment for safety and comfort, or other times feel like their faith is separate from their social life. For those who refuse to publicize their faith, ask yourself, what are you afraid of? People will call you weird or not accept you. Now, before moving forward, I want to clarify, no, I don't expect you to walk around screaming you are a Christian or a follower of Christ. However, when an opportunity arises to say something, you should do so with pride. Now, back to the concern of how others will react when you speak of the Lord's work in your life. If you're around people who will bicker and make jokes, you either have to emphasize its importance, don't pay mind to it, or walk away. I've been around this since the day I committed to this faith. Eventually, you reach a point where it doesn't get to you. The only thing that does is a sense of sadness for those who haven't had the chance to know Him. These are the people I believe the Lord has entrusted under our care, our sheep, with us being the shepherds, that we are to pray for constantly, not growing weary in seeing their evil acts, but sympathizing as they truly do not know what they do. Right? Now, that's the very, I don't say touchy subject, but there is, a certain gray area here, not exactly black and white, because you don't want to be around people, in my opinion, that are guiding you, I guess, in that direction. But in the same right, if you're the only person leading them in that direction, to walk away, this is what a deacon of mine told me, to completely walk away from them, who's going to steer them in the direction back to Christ. Of course, He could work through anybody, but the point being, maybe it's important for you to stick around, of course, if you're not losing yourself in the process, because you're their only hope. Not only hope, but you know what I mean. You're the one person in their life who may be steering them in that right direction. Number 3, Saturday night versus Sunday morning. One of the first videos I ever publicized regarding faith was about the Christian who came Sunday. I'm sorry. let me reword this. Sorry, I knew what I was doing here. One of the first videos I ever publicized regarding faith was about the Christian who came Sunday morning in Mass was an entirely different person than who they were 8 to 12 hours ago. With this, I'm referring to the individual who has previously mentioned, believes their spiritual life and social life have no correlation. They live to themselves either intentionally. As you can tell, I was flying this a little bit. Sorry, guys, I have a couple grammar errors here. I don't know why these weren't corrected already, but they lie to themselves either intentionally or subconsciously about their true identity, especially those in their 20s and 30s. Why, you may ask? Well, because the easiest scapegoat for maturing and solidifying your relationship with Christ at a young age is that it's your prime years, quote unquote, or college is for you to try new things, of course, always, sexually speaking and all things of that inappropriate nature, if you will, not to sound like a grandpa. But even parents push upon their children to be wild and free at a young age because it only goes downhill from there. And that advice, in my opinion, is just flat out pathetic. So you want to experience new things worthwhile while you're young? Go out into the world. Take a hike, plan a beach day, find a bike ride, trail, or if you have the means to travel, then travel. This world has so much to offer, but with one catch. Beauty is all around us, but we have to go searching for it because it will not come to us. You may realize each day poses new problems, becomes repetitive, and makes you want to escape. That's what will happen if you allow the day to come to you. Attack each day. Make the little moments worth your while by trying new things. If you get home from work tired, instead of watching Netflix and going to sleep, throw some cold water in your face and go for a walk. Better yet, go explore nature if it's possible. Start a new hobby or pursue something for the long term to set you and those around you up for success. Stop wasting your life crammed like sardines in some sweaty basement or trashy bar looking for instant gratification that will last the night and probably form some regret in the morning. Now go out there. Throw all the BS sayings life has taught you about utilizing your younger years for the worst reasons and really start living your life. And this is something that really touches home for me just because as anybody, could really be my alibi here when it comes to, people wanting to go out or asking me to go out and anything pertaining to that topic. It's just going out, being like bars and these crazy crammed, disgusting parties and whatnot. I'm not judging anyone who does those things. Some really close buddies of mine tend to do that quite often. They have a good time. I don't love them or care for them any less, but it's so different. Like you get a little snippet of what it's like to experience life and to go out and do these things. And it's even, and for me, you could also argue, if you knew me very well, that I haven't traveled much. I haven't been really that far out of town where I was born and raised. But also in the same right, it's those few times I have gone, or even the more recent things I've done where it's just maybe out of state or just a little further south or north of where I live. And you experience these little things of nature, the little things that are real, the things that, like something as simple as a hike, at a very simple mountain my buddies and I have gone to. It's not an easy hike, but by no means is it compared to what you find out in the Midwest. Little things like that. It's like, why do you want to be laying on the couch on your phone, scrolling, watching other people live amazing lives, then you envy them, and you just think it's not even possible. It's just on a screen, and that's not feasible for you, and you come up with every excuse in the book as to why it's not feasible for you, and then it just turns into a massive, just snowball effect of negativity in your life, leading to just dreaming and never executing. Lived like that for a little too long. Now, number 4, have commitment. Have commitment is no different than no commitment. This begins with Scripture when defining lukewarmness. To be lukewarm for Christ is to live a life for yourself, inevitably granting eternal damnation. The same rules apply for our goals. If you have a goal in mind, there cannot be a plan B, of course, within reason. All this does is grant you the necessary tools to quit when the going gets tough. What I've learned in spreading myself too thin is that no matter how structured I've been, I'm always lacking my full-fledged commitment to one of the many things I'm pursuing. Maybe it's just my lack of experience in pursuing multiple ventures, but I believe this is true for everyone. When it comes to things like hobbies or passion projects, I don't apply the same principles. Both hobbies and passion projects are that alone, and not deserving of what I refer to as full commitment. Full commitment means being able to constantly deliver on a daily, weekly, monthly basis whatever needs to get done, leaving no room for incomplete work. Now, my intention is not to make this sound extreme, but to emphasize the difference between full commitment and half commitment in both faith and our goals. One will inevitably deliver results, whereas the other will begin to feel like a burden in due time. And that's just straight out of my own handbook right there with the, feel like a burden or burnout as well is another good term for this, because spread yourself too thin, think you want to take on 1,000 different things at once, even if it's just saying, I want to take on, for example, I want to get into Muay Thai. I'll just do one class a week, maybe a couple a month, and that'll be good. And it doesn't seem like it's a lot. Obviously, you have to obviously pay for these classes, and they take time as well. But the point I'm making is that even though I'm only planning on doing this, or I wanted to plan on doing it for a couple times a month, it's still something just floating in the back of your mind that you got to get to, or just a busy day, and then you planned on having that little hobby or whatever for that day. It just stacks on, and the point being is that's what it's like to spread yourself too thin. And I've been doing that for this whole year. So many times I'm stressing out at night. During the day it's easy to keep your mind busy, keep doing what needs to get done, but then come nighttime your mind needs to rest. It's just, no matter how structured you are, it can still be pretty tough. It's just a lot going on. Sometimes you want to just do nothing and appreciate the nothingness. So spreading yourself too thin is you're playing a dangerous game, playing with fire when spreading yourself too thin. And don't think you're missing out on anything by not doing that. We got to live our lives obviously appreciating each day, not knowing we're going to wake up the next day, but definitely planning for the future as if you're going to see it. That's how you have to go about this life, because if you do it any other way, it just makes no sense, right? So number 5, your plan or his plan. The most common phrase amongst a community of believers, or said believers, is trust God's plan. But oftentimes these same people, myself included at times, forget to consider if the plan we're pursuing is actually God's plan for our life. When we blurt out in what feels like a moment of courageous faith, God's plan, have we ever stopped to self-evaluate? Have we thought maybe I need to act so God can act? Because the solution is rarely to sit and be still while God works his magic. For God to move mountains in our life, we have to act. It just becomes a matter of, do I stay the course or make a drastic change? The answer to this comes through prayer, conviction, and patience. The Lord knows our hearts, and we are the Lord knows our hearts, and we are not in a race against time. Once we commit ourselves to him, the outcome is inevitable. That being victory over the grave. Now, that is so important there. I should have just highlighted that, saying that we're not in a race against time, because that's, I think, what puts this, at least for newer believers, people that are still trying to understand this faith, is that it makes you think like, oh, I did this, now I gotta make peace or else I'm going to hell. Or what if I die tomorrow and I didn't make peace with the Lord at this time, or because I did this or that and I didn't go to confession or whatever. That race against time, that feeling, people could look at it as a good sense of urgency, but in reality, it's just really not, in my opinion. There's no race against time when you're truly devoted to him. Once you understand what that really means and your full-fledged trust is in him, the outcome is inevitable. And yes, there might be times where you're feeling, heavy laden, and your heart feels heavy and you're stressed out because you think you did wrong by him. And I get that. But at no point, the whole premise of that sentence there, you should ever be questioning your eternity, and obviously there's a great peace that should come with at any given time. Oh, excuse me. There should be a great peace at any time when realizing your eternity is heaven, and we can't even fathom what heaven's going to be like. But people too often like to go around fearing hell, which, I do all the time. I fear hell, not even for myself sometimes, but just for those around me who I believe haven't devoted their life to this faith, haven't devoted their life to Christ. And now I worry for them, when in reality that we should not worry. That worrying does nothing. The Bible tells us don't be anxious about anything, instead by prayer and I'm sorry, the second word's very, very specific word, I can't remember it. By prayer and petition, I believe. Is that by prayer? I should know this by now. By prayer and petition, make your needs and requests known to the Lord. Not, allowing yourself to be stressed out, concerned about these things of this life, because that's what prayer is for. It's what this faith is all about. Because if everything was 100% fact, it would be science at that point. It wouldn't even be faith. And that's why there's so many people that constantly like to combat this faith, is because they need to see it on paper. They need to know. Maybe that's just how they were raised, how their mind is programmed. They need to know for certain that something is going to happen, or else they don't give it their time of day. And you know what? Who am I to judge anyone's convictions and decisions and whatnot? But anyways, Guys, I've been making these episodes a little bit shorter. I think it's better for those of you who tend to hop on episodes, podcast, maybe for shorter car rides before bed. One person actually told me. So these are a little bit shorter now, a lot more to the point, a lot less babble. Got to work on that. Too much babbling. It's like when this mouth gets going, it just doesn't stop. So, anyways, thank you guys as always for tuning in. I really hope this episode made sense. I hope it's something you can make applicable to your life. And as I always say, please let me know what it is that you want to see, what you want to hear, and I'll be so happy to make a video on it, whether it be, in a shorter form clip or an actual podcast episode about it. But yeah, that being said, thank you guys as always. By the time you're seeing this, it'll be Monday, so I hope you enjoyed your weekend. And as always, God bless.